Welcome to the first installment, and hopefully not the last, of the BCAT Cinema Series. For those of you who don't know who I am, I think you all know who I am. I'm Chris Flaherty, one of the production coordinators here at BCAT. And tonight we'll be discussing the original animated classic from Walt Disney Pictures, Disney's Beauty and the Beast, exactly 1 week before the remake comes out. How convenient. It's almost as if I planned it that way. Anyway, directed by Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise, released November 15th, 1991, the 30th animated feature from Walt Disney Pictures, starring some celebrities I don't think anybody remembers in here anymore. Paige O'Hara, Robbie Benson, Angela Lansbury, Jerry Orbach, so on and so forth. Okay, all right, some people know who they are. All right. The younger crowd probably doesn't remember who they are. All right, well, yeah, so released on November 15th of 1991, but it's funny, the story of this film's inception began like the 1930s or 1950s with Walt Disney himself. Him and his team wanted to make a film based on the original French fairy tale Twice, but he couldn't crack the story. And unfortunately, historians and documentarians at the studio can't find any story art or production notes in the archives, so we have no idea what Walt's original vision was for this film. But you know, it probably wasn't that great, because in the later years of his life, Walt was becoming less interested in animation and more concerned with pushing the boundaries of live action and building his theme parks. Frank Thomas, he was one of Disney's original 9 animators. He once said, "We try to get Walt interested in animation again. Walt said, if I ever do go back, there are only 2 subjects I would want to do. One of them is Beauty and the Beast, and I can't remember what the other one was." So what exactly happened in the 25 years after Disney died and the release of Beauty and the Beast? A lot, but I'm going to condense it. For quite a few years, the animation department suffered a lot at Disney. The films were creatively lacking, and they weren't bringing in the profits that they used to. Other animation studios were surpassing Disney. In fact, and this was the biggest insult the studio ever faced, the Black Cauldron, one of Disney's worst animated films, lost its opening weekend to the Care Bears movie, so that kind of hurt. Yeah. It's funny, Disney almost suffered a hostile takeover in the mid-'80s. There was a major change in the animation staff. A lot of new blood was brought in, and they had to mesh with the old staff. Management was altered drastically. Names like Jeffrey Katzenberg, Michael Eisner, and Walt's nephew Roy came into the studio. And yeah, there was a big threat that, you know, Disney could go under and animation probably wouldn't exist at Disney anymore. But eventually, you know, Stella got her groove back. Does someone get that reference? Thank you. Yeah, so Disney got its groove back with the new management and the new team of animators. They took their time, they polished their craft, they learned from the old regime. And then films like The Great Mouse Detective and Oliver and Company were produced, and they performed financially and critically much better than their older films. And then they got that big hit that they needed with The Little Mermaid. And Little Mermaid eventually, you know, paved the way for Beauty and the Beast. And so the short version of all that is everything fell into place, and the stage was set for the studio to make something really great. That really great thing being Beauty and the Beast. According to, and this is where I'm getting a lot of my information, I don't just know all this. This is Tales Old as Time, The Art and Making of Beauty and the Beast by Charles Solomon. It's a fairly easy read, a lot of good pictures. I would recommend it. And that's, yeah, this is where I'm getting a lot of my information. I don't just know all this. According to the book, from 1983 to the film's release in 1991, there were over 5 story treatments for Beauty and the Beast that were workshopped at Disney. 4 of them were scrapped, and 1 became the film that we have today. I'm not going to go through all the different versions, but some highlights. The servants were once animals and not enchanted objects, and they didn't talk. In one version, Belle had 3 jealous older sisters, and in another version, she had a younger sister and a cat. The primary antagonist was actually Belle's aunt, who was desperate to claim the social ladder and marry Belle off to Gaston, and then the film would end with her pushing the gullible Gaston to fight and kill the Beast. And that would not have ended well for Gaston, because in that version he looked like this. I don't know, probably wouldn't have ended well for Gaston in that movie. And then there was a really, really weird version where there was like, it was like a weird Game of Thrones type thing. There were 3 brothers that were fighting for the throne. The middle brother like killed the older brother, and so some wizards punished him and made him the beast. And then the youngest brother was betrothed to Belle. It was weird. I'm glad we don't have that movie. We have the film we have today. And normally you think like the scriptwriter takes the major, he's driving the steering wheel of the movie, but with an animation department and obviously with a musical, the songwriters have a bigger, say in what's what. And actually Howard Ashman and Alan Menken really, shaped the story that we have today. And obviously, when you're in a big studio like Disney, stories are a big collaborative effort, and executives get to say like, yes, do that, or don't do that. I do want to talk a little bit about the music because it is a musical. Howard Ashman, he wrote the lyrics, and Alan Menken wrote the music. They met with the writers a lot, and he asked important questions of the writers and animators, like, why does this song have to be here? Why am I writing it? It has to be about something. The songs have to advance the story, and they go where the story turns. So basically, once there's a big shift in plot, that's where the song goes. He almost said they're like tent poles and markers in the scripts, sort of like your driving points. I love this quote. When he was talking, like, okay, where are these songs going? He told them, part of your world in The Little Mermaid could have been called I Want Feet. I wouldn't have made a lip dub if it was called I Want Feet. And then they were talking to him about like breaking down the opening number where like Belle's walking through the village and stuff. What does this song need to be about? What is Belle's character? She reads, she's the oddball out in town. And so Howard Ashman's like, okay, Belle is weird. I can write a song about that. And so a couple notes, fun facts. Angela Lansbury, she recorded the title song in just one take. Unbelievable. And she just re-recorded some lines over and over. The song Human Again was scrapped, but then it was put back into the Broadway show, and it was so successful in the Broadway show, they put it back into the 2002 film with new animation and the original voice talent. And the song Be Our Guest was actually meant for Belle's father, Maurice, when producers decided this is a very important song and it should probably be saved for our main character. And as you can see, they almost animated the whole thing for Maurice. So instead of, a fine dinner, Maurice just got thrown in a dungeon. Beauty and the Beast was one of the first animated films to use a practice called computer-generated imagery. We call it CGI. A lot of shots in the film are used like computer graphics and stuff. For some of our editors in here, if you know what like After Effects are, if you spend like time editing, you have like different timelines, and so like when you look at like the castle ballroom scene, you can consider like the characters are one plane and the computer graphics ballroom is like one scene, and you're basically keyframing them as you go along. And obviously with CGI you could change the lighting of like how the characters appear with like their coloring and everything. Beauty and the Beast was one of the first films to use their CAPS program, which basically allowed the artists to digitally color all their drawings instead of, going crazy with their crayons and paint. It's funny, the CAPS program back in the day, it could hold about 25 gigabytes. That's about an iPod Nano by today's standards, I think. The artists did a research trip to France. Animators often do that so they can get a better understanding of the world they have to create with their drawings and stuff. This was really interesting, and I did want to talk about this, the colors of blue and red in the film. If you notice, Belle is the only character to wear blue throughout the whole film, and it's like a symbol to say like she's the odd one out. Like every other villager wears like earth tones, like ground bay, just plain colors. And then, who wears blue in the final dance sequence? The Beast. They're connected, they're oddballs, they're in love. And then the color red, often in film, red establishes something sinister or evil. Who wears that? Our villain Gaston. And it's funny, he is the only Disney villain to have blue eyes, and it's sort of like a way to trick the audience because, Gaston looks like a Prince Charming type character in the beginning, but obviously as the film progresses, he's not a good dude. Spoiler alert. And then actually the Beast, his color palette changes throughout the film. Early on he starts wearing red, and then as I said in the end, he starts wearing, blue and purple. So that's just a funny little technique that animators use to, and just regular filmmakers use to, draw the eyes and tension and cinematography and such. This was really cool. The smoke in the final transformation scene, that's real smoke. They filmed real smoke and just basically, chroma keyed it in over the animated drawings. You're probably wondering why I have a comparison of Sleeping Beauty's final dance sequence right there. They were running out of time to finish the film, and so what they basically did was take the scene from Sleeping Beauty and just draw right over it. So, recycling. Again, film was released mid-November 1991, critically acclaimed film. It was the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, but it lost to Silence of the Lambs. No other animated film until 2009 with Up, and then 2010 with Toy Story 3 would ever be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars again. Beauty and the Beast was nominated for 6 Oscars, won 2 for Best Song and Score. It won the Best Golden Globe film for comedy or musical, and it also won Best Score and Song that year. Took in $141 million domestically, $206 million worldwide. I don't know how to adjust that for inflation. It was re-released in theaters twice, again, once in 2002 in IMAX screen with the song Human Again animated into the film. And then in 2009, it was converted to 3D. In the mid-90s, it was put on Broadway, and it ran for 13 years straight, over like 115 cities, over 13 countries. There were 2 animated direct-to-video sequels from the mid-90s, The Enchanted Christmas and Belle's Magical World. We don't talk about those films. And then obviously next week we will have a live-action remake of this film to add to this Disney legacy.